little propaganda for all of you about our business, and I hope you don't decide to go out and open a bunch of restaurants. We got too much competition as it is, so no, it's a great story. Anyways, so I'd like to talk to you tonight about a little bit about our company history and how I got to be here, and then a little bit about our company culture and our values and what we do with those, and then hopefully have some time for some question and answer after that. So when I talk about the company history, I got to go back a little bit to my history, and that is we go all the way back to when I was 9. I'm going to take you way back. My folks split up when I was 9. I had a very tough time with that, and I started, by the time I got to 7th grade, first day bus stop, 7th grade, a big 8th grader came up to me and said, hey, do you smoke? And I said, sure. And as I was shaking in my boots, and so I started smoking, and then I started drinking, and I started getting into drugs, and before you know it, my sophomore year of high school, I dropped out of high school, and was a runaway for a period of time, and about the middle of my sophomore year in high school. Came back to high school and grew up in an affluent area of Columbus, or Upper Arlington, if you're familiar with it. And what would have been the night before my junior year was to start, and I started getting back into school and so forth. But I was still having a good time and so forth. But that's where I got my first job. I started as in a local steakhouse as a dishwasher, and in high school, I struggled because I had the can-do, but I didn't have the will-do. But as I said in the video here, I eventually became class president for my senior class, and had the dubious distinction of not being able to give the commencement address because I didn't complete my requirements on time, because I had dug a hole for myself and didn't quite get up. And so then I went to summer school, finished last in my summer school class, and they finally got me out of there. But the key point there is that in Arlington, 93% of the kids went off to college, and I knew I didn't want to go off to college right away. I didn't rule it out, but I didn't want to go because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I worked for a restaurant. I opened up a Max and Irma's restaurant back in 1981 on December 7th, and I'll never forget it. And it was a very, very busy restaurant. This restaurant back in the day was doing about 10,000 people a week, so easily over 1,000 people a day on a Friday and Saturday. And I was working there for a few months as an AM cook. I'm 18 years old, and as a PM host, I had another job also, and I got suspended for 3 days for being late, and I got put on 30 days probation, and midway into my probationary period, I was late again, and fortunately for me, the general manager was off duty that day, and the assistant was on. It was on a Tuesday, and he said, go ahead and get on the floor and get to work, and so he turned the other cheek, and Friday, lo and behold, that Friday was a shift change. In the afternoon, on Friday afternoon, it was pandemonium in the kitchen, and people were trying to leave from the day shift to come on for the night shift. The restaurant was already 3/4 full, and employees were trying to order some employee meals and so forth. It was just crazy, and I'll never forget it. Time froze. I had an epiphany, and we've all had those in our lives. Remember it clear as a day, like it happened yesterday. I looked across the line. I said, time froze. I said, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. I'm going to be in the restaurant business. So I went home that night. I worked my double shift, and I went home that night and wrote out my goals and woke my mom up about 1 in the morning and said, I know what I want to do with the rest of my life. I'm going to be in the restaurant business. And so on those goals, I said I was going to go. I was 18 at the time. I was going to go to the Culinary Institute of America. I was going to graduate. And by the time I was 23, I was going to become executive chef. By the time I was 24, I was going to become a general manager. By the time I was 26, a regional manager. By the time I was 30, vice president of operations, and by the time I was 35, I was going to be president of a restaurant company. So needless to say, she was quite relieved that I had some direction in my life. I woke up the next morning, and I went from being literally overnight, from being the laziest guy in the kitchen, the guy nobody wanted to work next to, the guy that was barely hanging on for a job, working for bare money, to Saturday morning waking up, working for my career for the rest of my life. And I almost really can say I didn't really have a job after that, because I had a passion my passion got ignited for the restaurant business, and I love what I do. And I still tell people today, whether I'm playing golf, standing here in front of you, going to, quote, work every day, or spending time with my family, or traveling, it's all the same to me. I enjoy life just as much. So I really don't really have a job anymore, because I'm living my passion. But so I got I applied to the Culinary Institute, and I got turned down because of my high school grades. And I had to take some math and English courses at local community college. I got A's, reapplied, and finally got accepted. And I finally got up to the CIA up in New York, which is the Harvard of culinary schools. And that worked out really well. I fell in love with that school. I'll never forget, I started that school on Tuesday, cold Tuesday in January. And by Friday, I had fallen in love with that school. And about 25 years later, I got to come on the board of trustees of that school. And then I became the first ever alumni board chairman of that school. So, and now I'm the largest alumni donor to that school. So it's been a great school and a big part of my life. In fact, we're getting ready to open a restaurant in Columbus called Hudson 29, which is a tribute to the two most influential places in my life in terms of food and beverage, and that is the Hudson River, because the CIA sits on the banks of the Hudson River, overlooks the Hudson River about 80 miles north of the city, and Route 29 runs right through the middle of Napa Valley, which to me is the epicenter of food and wine in this country. So between both those two areas of the country have been very influential in my culinary career. So anyways, I finally got accepted to the culinary. And I graduated from there, and I came back to Columbus as an assistant chef. I got a job as a sous chef at a local restaurant. We had one white tablecloth restaurant, and we're building a second one, and that's when I got hired on to be the sous chef, the assistant chef of that second restaurant. And opened up very, very successful, very, very busy restaurant, and I ended up getting promoted to the executive chef position at 23 years old of our first white tablecloth restaurant downtown, and succeeded in reaching that goal. A year later, I became general manager of that restaurant at 24. We opened a couple of other restaurants, and at 26, I got promoted to the operations director for the 6 restaurants that we had at that point in time. And so I worked for them for another 3 years, and I got my boss, who was the operating partner, was a real micromanager, and the company started to outgrow him. And the restaurant was owned by some wealthy business people in town. It was a hip pocket business for them, and they didn't appreciate the restaurant business and didn't even respect it or nor care for it. And so I was getting really frustrated with where I was in my position. I was hitting my head on the ceiling, and I'll never forget it. I'd seen some great restaurateurs out there in the country, in Chicago, Rich Melman, and some folks in Paul Crusados in Atlanta, opening up these specialty restaurant groups, these multi-concept independent restaurant groups. And one Friday night in May of 1992, I was at a local restaurant, chef-owned restaurant. It was packed, and the chef was working in the dining room, and I walked in there on a Friday night, and I said to it hit me like a ton of bricks, another epiphany that I'm going to start my own restaurant company. And so I left roughly 6 weeks later on July 11th of 1992. I had a one-bedroom apartment up on the north end of town. I had about $8,000 to my name and a legal pad and pen, and started the pursuit of building Cameron Mitchell Restaurant. So the first thing I did, the first 3 weeks or 4 weeks, I spent, before I started looking for a location or looking for trying to raise money or putting a business plan together, I studied and researched and wrote out what is our company culture and our company values. Because I wanted the company to be, remember, I wanted to start a restaurant company. It was not about building a restaurant. It was about starting a company. And I wanted the company to not be about me, but I wanted it to be about the values. And so I'd been to the Disney Institute, and I'd seen some of this along the way. And so I wanted something that was going to be there 24/7, 365. So I researched a bunch of companies. I had read and self-taught myself a lot of books. I had read every book of every restaurant leader out there, Dave's Way with Dave Thomas or Norm Brinker on the Brink, etc. And I had read a lot of business books and the Spencer Johnson books and all those. And I finally started into some other business books about some other successful companies, and primarily one of my favorites was Zola Nuts, about Southwest Airlines, a fantastic company. And so I took all that stuff. I looked back on my career and looked at all what I had learned along the way and said, what kind of company do you want to build? So I wrote out these company values and the company goals, and then set about the course of building the company around those. So let me just tell you about those. And how I knew this at 28 or 29, I don't know. But I think any company has to ask itself and be able to answer 5 really basic questions about itself. And first and foremost for us, number 1 is, what do we want to be? What kind of company do we want to be? And we want to be an extraordinary restaurant company. If you look up in the dictionary, extraordinary by definition is the opposite of ordinary. So there's a lot of things I could take you through, dozens and dozens and dozens of things that we do that is very much opposite of what an ordinary restaurant company would do. Secondly, I think we got to be able to ask the question, how do we define ourselves? I think any business organization has to be able to define themselves. Answer the question, who are we? So we ask what we want to be. Now we want to say, who are we? We say we're great people delivering genuine hospitality. And, what does that mean? Great people. Well, I think we all know the difference between great people and not so great people. We're nice, we're friendly, we're warm, etc. We deliver, means someone receives it, genuine, from the heart hospitality. Hospitality is by definition to treat people as you would in your own home. So we define ourselves and are as great people delivering genuine hospitality. And it permeates everything we do within our business. Then we have about 3,000 people in our company today, and we all have different job descriptions, and some of us have the same job descriptions, but we have a lot of different job descriptions. But all 3,000 of us have the same role in the company, okay? And our role is to make raving fans of the 5 groups of people we do business with, which is our fellow associates, our guests, our purveyors, our partners, and our community. We believe, everybody knows what a raving fan is, right? That's the folks with their face painted at the ball game, with their shirts off in the 30-degree weather and getting crazy and cheering on their team. We believe that you have to belong to one of those 5 groups of people, one of those 5 constituencies if you have any interaction with Cameron Mitchell Restaurants. So if we can make raving fans of those 5 groups of people, then we'll make raving fans of people of Cameron Mitchell Restaurants. And so it might be just as simple as a hot cup of coffee on a cold winter day for a delivery driver, or a lot of times delivery drivers get stuck in traffic and they're late. And have you seen restaurants, they say no deliveries between 11 and 2. Well, if the driver gets there at noon, a lot of restaurants will send them away and come back and screws up his whole day. We're like, come on in, drop everything off, we'll take it. Just a little simple thing like that. Making raving fans of our fellow associates, of our guests. I could tell you hundreds and hundreds of stories of guest interaction which we've had, where we don't have something a particular guest wants, we run down the street to the store to get it and surprise them or whatever. So on and on and on. But making raving fans of those 5 groups of people. Then finally, the fourth the fourth thing is, I think people need to ask is, they have to have a mission statement. What is our mission, right? And so our mission is quite simple. It's to thrive with both cultural and fiscal responsibility. And we look at it as job number 1 and job number 1A. And the most important thing, and we think in business, our most important thing would be to make a profit. And that's not true in our company. Our most important thing is to maintain our company culture and our values. I believe I want to be in business for 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years, long after I'm gone. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is to be a values-driven company. So that's our number 1 goal, is to maintain our values. Job number 1A right behind it is to make a great profit. And not only do we want to make great, we want to make a fantastic profit. So, but we're not going to do that at the expense of our values and our goals, and our values and our standards. So we'll leave a penny on the table, but we're not going to sacrifice our values in order to make profit. So that's number 4. And finally, the 5th question I think people have to ask themselves, any business organization has to ask themselves, is, what is your goal? Right? So, any business organization has lots of different goals. We have thousands of goals. Some might be hourly goals. Some might be to get that chicken out of the oven before it burns. That's a goal. It might be to run a great shift tonight. It might be able to run a good profit this month. It might be to open this restaurant next week. Whatever it is, we have thousands of goals throughout the course of our days and our weeks and our years in our business. There's one goal that doesn't change, 24/7, 365, and that is to be better today than we were yesterday and better tomorrow than we are today. So if you think about that, we can sit here and talk about Cameron Mitchell restaurants, and I think we would all agree we're somewhat of a successful restaurant company. We could argue and debate how successful we are, moderately, super successful, not very successful, whatever. But we would all, I think, agree we're somewhat successful. And if we're better today than we were yesterday, and better tomorrow than we are today, by that virtue alone, tomorrow will be more of a somewhat successful restaurant company. So it embraces a culture of change, a culture of not accepting the status quo. We embrace change in our company. We're continuing trying to pursue being better. We know perfect will never exist, will never be perfect, but we continue to try to strive and make ourselves better. Then, those are the 5 basic questions I think the premise that any business has to be able to ask themselves and be able to understand. And I want everybody to understand those. We have a little red book that we have that everybody carries around with them. And there's 8 value statements underneath there, starting with the first one, and that is our associates come first. So here you are again in a restaurant business. Here I am, president of a restaurant company. You think I'd stand here before you and say the guest comes first. And we've heard that in so many different restaurant companies. It's preached all the time in retail. The guest comes first. And in our company, I will tell you the guest doesn't come first. And I'll be even brazen enough to tell you I don't think we have that much of a relationship with the guest. We have a relationship, a direct relationship with the 3,000 associates that work with us. Those 3,000 associates are the ones that take care of our guests. And then our guests, if we do a good job with them, take care of our company. So we look at it, our primary responsibility is to take care of our people. Our people come first. Take care of our people take care of our guests take care of our company. So you're a young person, you're working in our organization, and you got exams coming up, and you say, listen, can I have Thursday night off? I got to study for this exam. Every restaurant in USA would say to you, go ahead and get your shift covered, and you can have the night off. And we'll tell you the exact same thing. Go ahead and get your shift covered and get the night off. But if you can't get it covered, let me know, and I'll take care of it for you. Either way, plan on having Thursday night off. So what's that do? We let that associate know their life is important to us outside of work. If we ever want their life inside work to be important to them, then they need to know we care about them outside of work. And think about that simple equation. What about if we need that associate 3 weeks from now? Sue calls off work and we're in a pinch here, and we call that person up and say, can you come in and help us out? What are they going to do? They're going to come help us out because we help them out. So it's really simple. Actually, it's the golden rule. It's treat people the way you want to be treated. Treat people with respect. And and we see it in so many other ways. We're closed 7 major holidays. Why is that? Because we want to take care of people. I don't want to work Thanksgiving, so I don't want our people to work Thanksgiving. I don't want to work New Year's Day, so I want our people to be off New Year's Day. And so it's, and they appreciate that. I hear that time and time again. But the associate comes first. And so that's a very important part. We have 7 other value statements. I'm not going to go through all of them, but guaranteed fun equals guaranteed success. We talk about attitude. It's a conscious choice. It's a way of life. It's how you approach your day. We support the communities in which we do business. We've given millions and millions of dollars to charity over the years as we've been open. And so that's the basic structure of that culture. And then we have one final piece of that, and that is the answer is yes, what's the question? And that's an attitude, okay? Doesn't mean you can light up a cigar in the middle of the dining room on a Saturday night, okay? But it's a pervasive attitude of how we approach things. So, and we have a gal named Flo, who is our mascot for the answer is yes, what's the question? And it stems from a story when I was in a local restaurant in Columbus with my wife and my in-laws and my young son at the time, 4 years old. And I ordered him a grilled cheese sandwich, and the server said, well, we don't have a grilled cheese sandwich on the menu. And I said, well, I ordered a pulled Jack Nicholson, 5 easy pieces. I ordered a club sandwich, and I hold the bacon, turkey, ham, tomato, lettuce, etc. And I said, can you saute what's left in a pan for me? And she said, okay, we'll do that for you. I said, okay, great. So I said, well, I'd like to get him a chocolate shake too. And she said, well, gosh, we don't do chocolate shakes for kids. We have just a big Haagen-Dazs ice cream shake, and it's just too big for a little kid. We just can't. It's just like a big bowl mixed of soft serve ice cream. We can't do it. And I said, can you just, ask your manager real quick, make a little chocolate shake for him? And she says, okay. She goes over, ask her manager. Manager shakes her head no. She comes back and says, we can't do it. And I said, will you bring your manager over to see me? And she says, okay. And my wife starts kicking me under the table. Don't do this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm just curious. I really was just curious why. So she comes over and she says, I'd love to help you out, but we pre-portion the ice cream, which I know is absolutely a bunch of crap. And I said, we just don't, we just can't do it, And I said, okay. And I said, well, can you make a chocolate milk for him? And then now she's my best pal, and she's really bending over backwards to take care of me. Yeah, I'll make you chocolate milk. We'll take care of that for sure. She starts to walk away. I said, excuse me, one second, I have one more question. She goes, what's that? I said, on your menu it says a la mode, $2.95. Can you tell me what that means? And she says, well, that's a scoop of ice cream for desserts. I said, oh, perfect. Can I have an order a la mode and order chocolate milk? And if you could whip that up in a blender for me, that'd be terrific. And she says, okay, that'll be expensive, sir. And I said, all right, I'm a big boy, I can handle it. So, so I get it. My wife's livid at this point in time. She's like, we're never coming back here again. I told you don't take care of kids, etc. I said, okay, that's fine. So, about a week or two later, I'm a keynote speaker at the Hyatt Regency in Columbus for the Fast 50 Business First Fast 50 luncheon. About 500 people up there, and I'm like proud peacock up there talking about our business and how the answer is yes, what's the question, and I relate the story how this would never happen in our organization. And about 2 weeks later, a gal comes up to me on the street and says, hey, my husband saw your presentation and loved it, thought it was great, but went to one of your restaurants, the fish market, and ordered a chocolate shake from the bar, and the bartender wouldn't make it for him. So it's like she punched me right in the gut. And I came into our Monday, we have these Monday morning executive meetings and committee meetings, and I came in just all fired up. And said, this can't happen. Our culture is eroding. We got to get people to understand. The answer is yes. What's the question? We got to reinforce that. What are we going to do? And we started to come up with some good ideas. We created Flo, if you remember, I know none of you do. Some of you folks in the audience might remember Mel's Diner, an old show and Flo was there, and so she's our icon with the tray, with the milkshake on it. We created her, and we said, guys, let's make some pins. Let's make the milkshake our icon of great people delivering genuine hospitality. And the answer is yes. What's the question? So we create pins now. Everybody wears a little milkshake glass, and we said there's got to be more. And so we said, all right, well let's how about orientation? Let's tell the story about the milkshake. Make it part of the orientation every when new people start in a company. We're like, okay, that's a good idea too. It just wasn't quite enough. And so then we came up with the idea, we got it. Let's make everybody a chocolate milkshake on orientation day when they start with a company and tell them the story about the answer is yes, what's the question, great people delivering genuine hospitality, and that'll do it. And we started doing that about 12 years ago, and now we start every company meeting, every important meeting, leadership conference, president's roundtables, you name it, with milkshakes for everybody. I had a partners meeting the other day for our 20th anniversary. We had milkshakes for the entire audience, and it reinforces, really hits home. The answer is yes. What's the question? And we're great people delivering genuine hospitality. And so, when you think about it, you're in a service business. How could you say no? No is easy. We as human beings, generally speaking, are a little bit lazy. And no requires no action, right? And yes requires action. If you say, sorry, no, we can't do that. It means you're done all your work you need to do. You just simply let the word no roll off your mouth, right? Off your tongue. If you say, yes, we can do that, that means you got to go tell someone to do something. You got to go find someone. You got to go make it happen. You got to go do it yourself. It takes work. So, we want to preach in our organization, the answer is yes, what's the question? We want to reinforce that every turn we can. So, I hopefully now You walk into any one of our restaurants and people test me on all the time. They test it at catered events. We bring a chocolate milkshake, ice cream, and a blender to catered events because we got people at catered events. It's fantastic. They're out there in the middle of nowhere, on a cold winter night, and having a party, or a wedding. And they say, "Hey, can I get a milkshake? Just watch this." I'm messing. The server goes, "Yeah, sure." Come right back for you and get you a chocolate milkshake right there in the middle of that event. So it becomes now a game that we play, and it's reinforced it all the way along that we will always have a chocolate milkshake. I mean, we'll always have the answer is yes, what's the question? So when we talk about Cameron Mitchell Restaurants, we just celebrated our 20-year anniversary. October 5th, 1993 we started, so October 5th, 2013, we just celebrated a little while ago. And we've built about, I lost track, a little over 65 restaurants, I think, along the way. As the Dean mentioned, we sold one of our brands, about 2/3 of our business, in 2008 to Ruth Chris Steakhouse. And today we have about 35 restaurants, including the Rusty Bucket, around the country. We surpassed, I think we surpassed roughly the $1.2, $1.3 billion mark over the past, since we started the company. Started with a legal pad and a pen and nothing really. I have a picture on my desk. I was down to literally $70 rolling change to buy groceries, and was able to finally raise the capital I needed for the first restaurant and break escrow, and I was able to write myself back a check for $7,000 that I lived off of till we opened the restaurant. I was able to draw a salary. Like I said, we have about 3,000 associates. We are in the process of, we're right now in the throes of the largest expansion in our company history, which has got me nervous, but we've got a great team and a terrific team. We have, I do love the creation of restaurants. Someone asked me earlier, what's your favorite restaurant? And I had to tell them the story about my buddy who used to date a lot of girls and ask which was his favorite girl he dated, and he said the next one. And so that's the way I am with restaurants. My next one is my favorite one. And but we also, I love running the business, and thriving on running the business and building a business is really ultimately my favorite thing to do. We just opened up our 10th Ocean Prime in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, downtown Philadelphia, in September. We have our 11th Ocean Prime and opening up in Beverly Hills on Wilshire Boulevard, a block from where Pretty Woman was filmed at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, and a block from Rodeo Drive. And I think it's a trophy location out there. I'm in a 1 yard line for a restaurant in Manhattan, which is every real restaurateur's dream, is to build a restaurant and open in Manhattan. Another Ocean Prime in Manhattan. We have 15 Rusty Buckets today. We have 4 more under development for next year, and 5 the year after that. Take us up to 2 dozen of those. And then we have 5 new concepts coming in Columbus that we're doing over the next 18 months. So, and our catering business is expanding. So we have just a lot going on. It's a wonderful business, and it's an exciting business, and I love every minute of it. So with that, I'd love to answer some questions, but that's kind of the story of how I got here to stand here in front of you, and love to talk shop, answer questions about the restaurant business. So we could keep you here all night long about that, or we can talk about business or leadership or anything you may want to ask me. I'm an open book, and I would love to get some dialogue going. Yes. Thank you. Yes, sir. Doctor? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
What are the key factors that you're looking for in new managers, leadership that's coming into your organization?
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the key factors we look at in hiring new folks, and I got to say we're not that scientific about it. So with that said, I've actually challenged our VP of Human Resources to be more scientific. If you talk about, of those 3,000 people we have in our organization, roughly 1,000 of them are salespeople, okay? And the total organization, I forget, total volume of the organization, but if we can identify those top 10% of our salespeople and their traits, their exact traits, and if we can test to that and help improve the hiring process of those salespeople, onboarding those salespeople, and if we can, raise the check average by $1 by having better natural. Some people are better natural salespeople. We could generate millions of dollars of revenue. So we're trying to get a little more scientific. We've tried all the testing out there to help vet some of our associates and folks. That really hasn't shown any marked improvements or marked results. We've shown empirically that we're just as successful hiring outside as we are inside. There's no longer tenure rate with that. What we really do is look for people who are busy, who are active and have been successful in their previous life, what they're previously doing, and then hopefully they'll be successful with us. And we're one of those companies simply that you spend very little time with, or you spend a long time. We either offboard people very quickly, or people stay with us for years and years and years. So it's just there's not a whole lot of in between there. So we kind of try to know quickly, and we do make our hiring mistakes. But the last thing I really want is a bad apple to be running around the organization for 2 or 3 years out there. So the damage they can do is phenomenal. So we test. We train and test and so forth, and we try to identify those folks, those non-performers, very early on in the process. So I wish I could give you more scientific data we're doing, but there's no really silver bullet for it that we found just yet. Is that it? Okay, thank you very much. Yes, sir.
Question I have for you is, as you expand and you get further away from Columbus, what do you kind of steps do you take to ensure that the quality is up to your standards as if you were in that restaurant?
Well, that's a good question. So a couple things. One thing we know that happens, it's more difficult. So we do what we call an AOS survey twice a year, where we survey all of our associates, get reams of information and measure our quality, measure the impact we're making, how well the culture is permeating the restaurants, etc. We rank all of our restaurants, we rank all of our managers, we do all that. As much measurement as we can get. But we know it's harder to do the out-of-town stores and have that culture impact as we do with the in-town stores. So we try to, we will not open up a restaurant out of town without homegrown managers. We might outside hire a manager or two, but the rest of the managers come from within our system. Otherwise, we can't get that culture transferred properly into the new store. As far as quality issues go, we have a number of measurements in terms of guest feedback. There's open table results. We track all the social media results and feedback from that. We track all of our what we call our manager comps, which are the problem checks and so forth. And we have a number of different systems in place to measure that quality. We have a sizable, field team and regional managers and supervising folks that come in and circulate within the restaurants and measure quality. So we have, I'd say, at least a dozen different touch points that we do to monitor that quality. If we're having quality problems, we know about it fairly quickly. Yes?
As an entrepreneur, what would you say is the most challenging situation you've ever faced?
Well, making payroll's not so. You have a tough time making payroll. That's no picnic. Payroll comes Thursday and it's Wednesday. I've been in that situation a couple times where I need $100,000 or more, and we've had to figure that out. The toughest situation, I think, really of all, was really getting the first restaurant started. That was 14 grueling months. I worked on a first deal that fell through at the very last minute. The landlord went bankrupt. I had to start all over again. And but that's the key, I think, to being an entrepreneur. That I've never met a problem I can't solve. That you'll punch through it, you'll go over it, you'll go around it, dig underneath it, whatever you need to do to get around that problem. So, but that was probably the most challenging thing I've ever done, is get that first restaurant started. Then, had lots and lots of scary moments. We had, you might have heard over the years, this happened in 2004, way back in the beginning of this phenomena. where cyber thieves will break into your computers and start to hack away and steal your guest credit card information. That happened to us, and the bank calls me up one day in August of 2004, says, "I'd like to come see you." "Oh, great. When do you want to come see me?" "How about today?" "Oh, even better. Yeah, I'm available." And come on over. And they talk about how, they found research that they found out that we had land on 600,000 cards compromised, and it was a potential of $25 million fines and damages. And if you read in the credit card manual that we get, what's that manual called? The CPS something? SC manual? Page 63, paragraph 2-line 4A, we did something wrong, and we were liable. So it was either us, I could either fight Visa or in MasterCard, or we can just roll over and play dead, and that's what we did, and we ended up, it wasn't a fatal. So once I learned that mistake that only cost us $1.6 million, once I determined that, I was so excited and yippee yay, jumped up for joy. I was only going to lose $1.6 million because it wasn't a fatal blow. I thought it was a fatal blow. $1.6 million, I lived to fight another day. When you're an entrepreneur, that's really what you're focused on, is living to fight another day. So we've had some tough times along the way, but again, but you have faith too. I got a reputation of kind of laying like a cat, always on our feet. We talk at the office, can't believe we're gonna get through this, and somehow, some way, we get through it. So lots of challenging days along the way, but lots of great days too. Hope I answered your question there. Good. Yes.
You mentioned a couple of times the selling the fish and steakhouse in the fish market. Could you say something about the process of deciding to do that?
Sure. Well, we're a very people-centric company, and so to offboard that many people off your company at one point in time was a very monumental decision for us. But we were faced with a kind of a perfect storm. We acquired a lot of debt. When I started, nothing from nothing was nothing. And so, I need risk for breakfast every day. Now, I had wife and 3 kids, and, a house and a mortgage and another mortgage. And we had about $30 million worth of debt on the company. And it was, taxes were probably the lowest I'd ever seen in our lifetime right there. Multiples being paid for restaurant companies were some of the highest we've ever seen. We ended up getting a 10.3 multiple. We had $8.9 million of EBITDA. We sold for 10.3 times EBITDA, which was $92 million. And but most important, and so that was a decision, but that wasn't the big enough decision, or biggest part of the decision. The biggest part of the decision was we had this brand, the fish market and the steakhouses, we felt were pretty good and ready to grow. We had all these, we wanted to build this, grow the Ocean Prime, we wanted to grow Marcello's, we wanted to grow Rusty Bucket, we wanted to build new concepts. And that takes a lot of mental capital and a lot of physical capital, which we didn't have enough of either. And so if we didn't sell, we're basically holding back the people, all of our people in totality. So from opportunities. So we decided the best thing for us to do is to sell that brand and then focus on the growth of the other brands and move forward. And so we thought by selling to a publicly held restaurant company or a private equity firm that they were going to grow that thing tremendously and provide even more opportunity for our people than we could possibly do. And they ended up running to the ground. They stripped the whole culture out of the deal. They're open 365 days a year now. They've totally rewritten it and stripped it. The quality they've stripped, everything, they've run it into the ground. And it's terrible. It's a sad thing, but it's not what I expected to have happen. You'd think someone pays that kind of money for you. They're buying you because they like you and they want to replicate what you're doing, but that was not the case, and they're certainly paying the price for it right now. So there'll never be another fish market built with that brand. I guarantee you. So anyways, that was the dichotomy of the whole thing, what happened. What else? Yes, ma'am.
How do you decide what locations and concepts will be successful for new restaurants?
It's a great question. So real estate, I was talking to the other group about our restaurants and restaurant business. I've never met a restaurateur that has a better average than this, but basically an 80% success rate. There's a couple, Tao, Las Vegas, New York have done very well. But anyways, one's a dog. The next two to three are what I call singles or doubles, and then the other one's a home run. And you end up getting 5 singles or doubles out of the deal. So Real estate selection, I like to say, listen, if someone could improve those odds, and there's real estate consultants out there and have the metrics and all that, we've done them all, we've used them all, and I really have seen no material difference in it. And so we've gone to a very scientific way of proving real estate and site selection, and that's by kicking the tires. So it's simple. I used to call it the Daniel Boone theory. I'd open up in some of these lifestyle centers are going to open up, and the landlord sells you a bill of goods, and it's going to be great, and blah, blah, blah. And we have no idea how it's going to perform. So I remember I opened a fish market in Tampa. I'm standing there with a developer. He goes, I want to put you right here. Right next to you here is the steakhouse that's doing X million dollars. Here's the Italian restaurant, Maggiano's, that's doing above its unit volumes, and here's P.F. Chang's that's doing above its unit volumes. And we want you to put a fish market right here. And I said, okay, great. That's about how much time I put into it, because you can see it. So we only go now where we see other restaurants are busy. And then, like if we're building Ocean Primes, we know that we want a specific site for that. We're looking, in Washington, D.C. for an Ocean Prime site, for instance. In Columbus, where we're building all these new restaurants, example would be the Short North. If you haven't been to the Short North, it's kind of the urban center action of Columbus. There was a site that came available, and I knew the landlord. I was friendly with the landlord. I called him up and I said, I want it. I want to lease it. He goes, what do you want to put there? I said, I have no idea. He said, send me over the lease. Just trust me. It's going to be good. And we created the brew pub, or not the brew pub, the gastropub concept there, which is the Pearl we just opened a year ago. And it's been very, very successful. Because we knew that area, we saw the gastropubs being very successful out there in the country. We knew that area would be very conducive to that, and that's where we matched the two together. So it's a little bit art, a little bit science, but real estate is, the key to success in finding good real estate. So we work real hard on it now, and I won't go anywhere. If a landlord says, I got this plot of land, we're going to build this there, yeah, well, call me when it's done, and I'll take someone that dropped out. I'll come in and backfill a space, but I'm not interested in being there on the Pioneer team anymore. Yes, sir, in the back.
Cameron, what's your opinion of the food truck trend? Is that something you guys are looking into?
I hate food trucks. I think it's a travesty. And I understand these guys, and I appreciate them, I got it, and all that, But the fact that a guy for a few grand could pull up and essentially set up a restaurant right in front of yours, that's not, I don't like that, And I know that some of them have some good food, but I personally can't get warmed up to it. I personally can't go eat at a food truck because I just think, on the hand, I know a lot about food. I can't imagine what all's going on back there. So, I know some of them are good, but I'm not willing to whittle through and find out. So, I understand why it's happening. These people are creating their own jobs and creating their own, dreams, I guess. But I personally don't care for them. But they are filling a void, I guess, and helping the market and challenging the market. The other one is Whole Foods. Whole Foods opened up in my neighborhood down the street from one of our restaurants, and I walked in there for lunch and to see it, and I couldn't believe it. There's 200 people in there having lunch at Whole Foods. And, I wanted to tell them, what are you people doing eating here off a buffet when you can go eat over here? But anyways, they were doing it. And so those are kind of fairly sizable competitors to our business to a certain extent. So, what else? Yes, ma'am.
With your sale of Mitchell's Steakhouse and
Fish market.
Fish market, sorry. They have your brand attached to them.
Yeah.
They didn't end up performing the way that you wanted them to.
Mm-hmm.
Going forward, do you think you'll ever sell the brand name again?
Yeah. Well, I sold my name. Cameron's. It's called Cameron's Steakhouse, Mitchell's Fish Market. My wife was killing me. Like, well, how are you going to do this? I said, it's just a brand in my mind. It wasn't really my name. It was a brand. But I just answered 2 complaints the other day on the fish markets. People writing us and saying, it was in there and it sucked, and, what are you going to do about it? I'm like, nothing. But in some cases, we'll send them a gift certificate for our restaurants and say, apologize for that, but please try, we don't know it anymore, please try our restaurants. So we try to go, again, above and beyond and be an extraordinary company, but it is, it's frustrating when they've kind of trashed that. Now, would I sell a brand again? You betcha. Okay, yeah, so and we ultimately will at some point in time. That's, that's the best way. So we've got about $25 million invested in CMR restaurants, partners. And to provide a return for them, we got a cash flow. We got to distribute $5-6 million a year in cash, and that's hard to do when you have debt and you're trying to expand and everything else. So really, the best way ultimately to ultimately capitalize for them and reward them is really ultimately a sale at some point in time. But on the same token, we don't build. I never intended to sell the fish market until about 15 months before we did it, and so we're not intending to sell other brands per se, but we are certainly open to that, and we certainly want to be prepared for when opportunity arises. So we want to prepare ourselves in the event of a potential sale, and if it doesn't happen, great, but if it does happen, hallelujah. So, yes, sir.
After you graduated culinary school, what were some of the key drivers or attributes that enabled you to move up so quickly? Maybe not just particular to the restaurant business, but universally.
Sure. So I graduated from school. I was the least paid, hardest working guy. Now I'm the least working, highest paid guy. Right? So how do you work that sunset, so to speak, that arc? And it's first and foremost its attitude. I was talking about this earlier with a group outside about success. To me, success is fairly simple recipe. And that is get the best education you can possibly get, which is what I did. I went to the CIA. Find the best company you possibly can to work for, and have the best attitude you can, and work your butt off, and hopefully you got some smarts about you on top of that, and you can be successful. But attitude is really the biggest thing. So in the beginning, I was so fortunate because my boss, this is such a young restaurant company. We had one restaurant when I started. We were opening the second. And I got to see how we formed restaurants legally, financially, how to build them, how to do all sorts of things. And I was a fly on the wall. I got to sit in meetings and not say anything. I got to, I worked, I tell people this all the time. People come to me and say, oh, man, I worked a 12-hour day today. You say, well, hey, big deal. Worked a half day. If you think about it, it's a half day, right? You get the whole other half, So I'd outwork anybody, it would be very common for me to work 8 in the morning till 11 at night sometimes when I was younger, or 12 at night, or from 10 in the morning till 2 in the morning, get right back up and do it again. So I treated my career like wanting to be a surgeon, even though I wasn't going to med school and so forth. But if you think about becoming a surgeon, you go to 4 years of college, 4 years of post-doctor, or professional education. You get residency for 3 years, a fellowship for 5 years, maybe a subspecialty for another year or two. And guess what? You're a junior surgeon. So then you got to be a surgeon for work your butt off another 80 or 90 hours a week for another 7 or 8 years. And by the time you get in your mid-40s, you're a professional, reputable surgeon. And that's the way I treated my whole restaurant career. I didn't become a really, I think, professional or reputable restaurateur until I was in my 40s. Even when I started at 30, we used to joke back then we were kids running restaurants, and we were. We weren't nearly as sophisticated as we are today. But that's the way I treated my career, But you got to work hard, That's all there is to it. And I self-taught myself. I read so many books and every trade journal I could read, and I was just like a sponge. Just give me more and more and more about the restaurant business. So now I could probably not tell you how to do a lot of things. Forgot it all, but that's a whole different story. So anyways, but back then I was hungry. So, what else? Anything else? Wrap it up? I'm getting a rake here. Anybody else? Come on, one more. Good, sir.
With starting new ventures or new ideas, when do you know when to pull back and start investing your time and your energy into something else?
That's a great question. So, Jim Collins. Anybody here? Jim Collins here? Anybody? Jim Collins? I think one of the best business authors out there. We're Jim Collins' disciples. A book called Good to Great. Talks about the 3 concentric circles. And this is how we decided. We were originally growing Martini and some other restaurants out of town. This is how we decided to focus on the fish market. And ultimately, that became the focus of the sale. But I had all of our executive team read Good to Great. It talks about the 3 concentric circles. Okay? One is, what are you passionate about? Secondly, what's got a good economic engine? And thirdly, what are you number one or number two in the market? Your market. And we looked at the fish market. The fish market answered all three of those. Got a great economic model. We felt we were tops in the market. We compare ourselves to McCormick and Schmick's or Legal Seafoods. We outperformed them. And we were very passionate about it, and a good economic engine. So we focused on, that's where those three concentric circles coincide. That's where we focused our energy. And that's what the company completely turned around, and that's where we started to really get the results for the fish market we wanted to have. So we've been, down the road with some other concepts along the way, and we've learned that, to understand the economic model and determine whether we can open it up. We have our busiest restaurant that has the most bodies coming through the door is Cap City Diner, yet we won't open up any more of them because it doesn't have a great economic model. It's got a low check average, very high labor cost, and very high food cost for the quality of product. So it's like delis are very difficult, Buy good quality pastrami and you got to pay someone to slice it and you can only charge $8. It's tough to make money in. Versus steakhouse, hey, you open up the steak, put it on the broiler, charge $40, pay the guy $2, you're making a fortune, So, so it's that economic model that's important, but we try to analyze that and look at that. We got one more from our professor over here real quick. Do you have a question right behind you? From Vornovich? Okay.
If you just shared earlier, you were talking, Cameron, about leadership. You as a leader. Mm-hmm. And how is your 3,000 associates, how do they describe you as a leader?
I was telling Diane a story. Diane said that I overheard her talking. She said, I was the toughest boss she's ever worked for, but the best boss she's ever worked for. And I would say people that I work with will tell you that, I'm tenacious, driven, and intense. Some would say a little moody, but I think they don't understand. That's not true. It's just my level of intensity is really what that is. It's not my mood, So, anyways, I think I'm steady Eddie. But definitely a hard driver, but passionate and compassionate about our people. We take care of our people like there's nobody's business, and people love working for our organization, and I think ultimately, most importantly, they trust me. I think our partners trust me. I think our people trust me, and I tell people, integrity takes years to build and days to ruin, and I'm not one to. I never lied to anybody about our business. I get Diane to, come on, Diane, numbers can look. You can do something here, can't you? What's in that gap rule? So. But we would never do anything. We've been through, I can't tell you, Diana sailed us through 60, 70, 80, 100 audits over the years. Never had a qualm about it. Everything is totally above board. We wear everything on our sleeve. You get what you see is what you get. And I think that just creates a nice atmosphere of trust. And, some people don't like it, so they move on. They off-board pretty quickly, but most people agree with what we do, and we get a lot of longevity out of it, and a lot of good people hitching their wagon to our horse. So if that's the proper terminology, yeah. So that's it. Okay. Thank you.
I want to thank Cameron for coming all the way down from Columbus and spending the time with us.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody.